Let's have a look at why, even in AWP mode, the links are a problem. And for that, I created a very simple and ugly AWP page. There it is. As you can see, it's ugly like there's no tomorrow. But it's going to allow us to check out all the different type of link that we can create. So here I have a column of button. They are buttons without any formatting, but they are buttons. And here I have a column of links with all different characteristics. And for each of them, when I'm going to execute the page and hover on top of it, you will see at the bottom left of the browser the corresponding link as displayed by the browser. And you will see what is readable by a search engine or not, now that you know the difference. So it's going to be a little mind-numbing, but it's really informative to see what you can do and what you can use and what you cannot. Let's have a look. So this is a button, and as you can see, it is sending JavaScript code, so not for search engine. And the parameter of this button, because the way the link is formatted depends of the parameter of the button, is send the value to the server, and the action is display page 1. Now this is the same thing with a link. Send value to the server, action, display page 1, and you have the same result, JavaScript not usable. Let's have a look at the source. So if I open this one, send the value of control to the server, so that's a submit button, and just the direct action, display the page 1. Absolutely no code. As you can see, this combination gives something that cannot be used in search engine optimization. And exact same thing for the link. Sorry. With send the value of control and display page 1. Okay. I'm going to do a quick hover on each of those things. So this not usable, that not usable, this okay, maybe page 2, action display page 2. Oh yeah, but the problem is here, when you do an action display page 2, you cannot send any parameter to the receiving page. So it's something that is completely static that you cannot use for real work. Same thing here, it's completely static, action display page 2. Now here, okay, that looks better, but there is one problem. You see this A3? We're going to go back to that later. Same thing here with the A10. There is a problem. It's not normal. This JavaScript T0 not usable. This not usable. That, you see, same problem with the A1. There's something not normal here. I'm going to show you. This static, not usable. This, that looks good. Here we have a parameter and a full form URL, and here same thing. So what is that? That is a link saying no, I'm not saying the content of the fields to the server. No, I don't have any action when clicking on the link. I just have my .URL property initialized correctly in the server init code. Now, if I take this link and I just change one thing, instead of not sending the fields to the server, I'm sending them. As you can see, the difference is as soon as you send the value to the server, you are in JavaScript. Okay, so it looks like the only two that could match our problem are these two. Let's have a look in detail. So Even in AWP, regular links and buttons are in JavaScript. So when we look at the cases, what do we have? We have the fixed JavaScript link. That is the link when you select send values, and the link is to display a fixed page that you, not by code, that you fixed as an action, display page 1. So even though you know in advance the page that you're going to, because you send value, you're going through this JavaScript code where, okay, there is the name of the page that you're going to, but it is JavaScript, which means that the search engine will not do anything. And that's the send values creating the problem here. After that, if we look at the fixed static link, so what is that? Okay, that's a link that I love, it's perfect. But as you can see, there is no parameter. And why? Okay, we are not sending the values to the server, it's not a submit button or link, but the action is just display page 2. So you can display a page, but you cannot send any parameters to it. After that, we have the case of the page display in the server code of a link. Previously, the last time I checked what this was doing, and it was in version 12, we had this JavaScript GCL code, and it was just saying, okay, this is an action of the page, this is the button itself, the button on which we are clicking, and that's it. Now it's this. It's much better, as you can see. It's the link I said that was nearly good, but with the A3. The problem is that this link here is not a link to page home. Look at it. It's the non-run server code page display. Non-run server code page display. It's this one. Okay? Well, let's have a look at what we have in it. It's the server code, and inside the server code we are doing a page display for another page. So we are doing a page display to page 3. Okay? But in this URL there is no page 3. There's page home. So the URL is nicer, yes, than what it was before. They improved things. The only problem is that it is linking to itself. We are on the page home, and it is linking to this page home saying execute the code of button A3. So once again, it's a little better for search engine optimization, but not by much. It's still not referencing the target page, not referencing any parameter that we could have in it and that are usable for the search engine to improve your ranking. So again, not that good. Now, you can also display a link in browser code. You do a page display inside the browser code. It's possible. In that case, you get JavaScript T0. It's not any better. Now we have the case of the programmable static link with parameter. This works only on links. And here you see that you have a perfectly formatted URL with a parameter. Now that's good. So what is that? It's a link and only a link. And why? Because we are doing something on the .URL property. Let's have a look. We are talking about this one. What are we doing in this one? If you are looking at the property, we are doing nothing and nothing. So how is it working? Well, if you look at the code, in the initialization of the link, we are changing its .URL property to the page that we want. And as you can see, we are giving it a relative URL to the website, and it's automatically completed for the website. So by doing that, and here I can pass any parameter that I want, I can link to another page with parameter with a properly formatted URL. So this is the only solution that works. Now, we don't have a .URL properties for buttons, which means that for the search engine optimization purpose, we cannot link to other page with buttons. We need to use links. Now, if I take that link and I copy it here, which I've done, and I just change one thing, here I'm saying send the value of control to the server. I still have my .URL and .dat and all that, but it is now sending the value of the fields to the server. This is JavaScript again. Now, for the images and the clickable images, so this one is an image, and this one and this one are clickable image. Okay, so what's the difference? This one, because it's an image, has no other possibility than running an action here. Okay, and this action are either none or run the server click code of a button or a link, or display the first dynamic product page. Those are the only action available, which means that here, if I look at the code that is available, the code that is available is just initialization of image and click on browser code. There is no server code click on an image, which means that basically it's completely unusable for what we want to do. Now, on an image, in a clickable image, we do have a server code for there. So clearly that's the difference between an image and a clickable image. Also, here we can do directly display another page, which was not available in the image directly. The problem is that when we do that, we don't have any parameter, and when we do this, we are in fact in the exact same case, none, no action, and here, and in that case, as you can remember, we have here a usable URL and here a usable URL. Those are the two only cases that works. So this works for links and maps or clickable images, and they are the only one we can use for search engine optimization. We could continue like this and look at all the different cases and see what works, what doesn't work, and so on and so forth, but it will take hours. Believe me, I did it to find the correct solution for every case. So let's not go through the whole thing again. Let me give you in a nutshell what works for search engine optimization in AWP. Well, first, for a regular link, remember, no buttons. Use check, nothing sent to server. You don't want to boot a submit link, otherwise it's JavaScript. No action. And in the server init code of the link or in the server page init code, so either on the link or the page initialization server, which means before it is displayed on the browser, you're setting the .URL property. This property will receive a link. As you can see here in this example, I've been using a relative link, and using a relative link create another set of problems. Why? Well, because it is different in the first page. Remember how things are organized on the WebDev in the WebDev directory. You have your index page, at the root level, and then you have all the other pages organized by language in a directory with the 2 letters of the language. So you have all the English page in the UK directory, all the French page in the FR directory, even if you're using only one language. Now, the first page of the website, the index page, is in place in 3 different places on the disk. One in the root directory, one in the UK directory, one in the FR directory. That's, of course, if you have 2 different languages. When you link your domain name to your website, it is the page in the root directory that is started. Which means that in that page, when we are linking to another page, we need to specify this UK. That's what you see here, and that's because the example I showed you was made inside the home page. Now, when you're creating a link from inside another page than the first one, you are already in the UK directory. So you cannot say here UK, otherwise you would have the final URL that would contain UK/UK/page, and of course wouldn't find it. So if you want to stay in the same language, you need in that case to have a link without the UK. And of course, if you want to change language, you need to get now up one level and down another directory. Which means that most of the time, instead of dealing with am I on the first page or not, am I going back to the same directory or not, it is easier to set as URL an absolute URL with the HTTP my domain name dot my project underscore web slash UK or slash FR, and so on and so forth. So of course, that creates also another set of problem in that you need to manage now the fact that in test mode you're on localhost, while on the real deployment server you have a real domain name. And the fact that because you can deploy the same website on different servers for different customers, you can have different domain name. So you cannot put that as a constant on your website. You need to manage it by code one way or another. So if we have the time at the end of this course, we'll look in detail at some solution that I have written that I'm using for my own website. Now, you can also use a map, also called a clickable image. It's basically the same thing that for the link. You say that there is no action. There's nothing sent to the server anyway because a clickable image cannot submit. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And in the server init code of the clickable image, or in the page init code, so again before the page is displayed on the browser, you're again setting the .URL property with the same, of course, problem with the UK or not, absolute or relative path. And of course it's different in the first page the same way. Now in a looper it's more complex, of course. Why? Well, because it's a looper, so it's always more complex. First, you need to use a non-Ajax looper, and you need to use a non-Ajax pager. Otherwise, with the Ajax in the middle, all the links are dynamic. Now, natively, the links in the pager, the non-Ajax pager, are static, so you don't have to worry about this one. Now for the links that are inside a line of the looper, so you have your catalog display in the looper, and each line is a product, and you have a link in it to open the product page where you have the details of the product. That is a very classic scenario. So in that case, the link that is inside a line of the looper has to be set up the following way. Nothing sent to the server, so that's always the case. No action, that's the same thing as for a regular link. But you cannot just do .URL something. You are in a looper. So you need to add an attribute to the looper. This attribute shall not be linked directly to the file. You cannot have just a value in the file and use it like that. Unfortunately, you need to do that by code. It is on URL action. That's the corresponding parameter for .URL. And in the row display of the looper, in the code row display of the looper, you need to set the URL action attribute. So that's the one we defined just before, with a static link build on the row unique key. What does that mean? Well, with an example, it's going to be clearer. You're going to do att URL, that's the current, that's the URL for the current line, equal the URL that you want to link to. And in this URL, as a parameter, you pass the reference of the current line, att reference. Now, you also need to be able to link to classic pages. And what are classic pages? Well, they are the pages of the part of your website that you decided to develop in classic mode. So that may be your cart, that may be your internal management, that can be whatever part of the website that you don't want to reference. So to do that, again, you need to do specific things. First, in the target pages, the pages that you want to be able to reach this way, you go in the advanced properties and you check allow the access by dynamic site display. Otherwise, the page is not allowed to be called from the outside. And then in a button or link, and at that point it doesn't matter if it's a button, because clearly the classic part of your website is not something that you want referenced. So in a button or a link, you're going to set nothing sent to server, no action, still the same way. But this time, in the browser code of the click, you're going to write dynamic site display. And why in the browser side of the code of the click? Well, because dynamic site display is available only in browser code. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. For me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because the dynamic site display reference dynamic pages of the same site, so I'm not sure, but it's the way it is. So you're going to do a dynamic site display, and your first parameter is going to be the name of your project. Without the underscore web. When you're creating a website, you're calling it my website. On the web, it's going to be installed in a directory where you have a my website underscore web, and all your URLs are going to contain that. Well, here you're going to give the name of the website without the underscore web. And the second parameter is going to be the name of the page that you want to reach. And as you can see here, this name of page is inside quote. It is a string. If you don't put it inside the quote, it won't work. It's browser code. It's the way it is. So as you can see, there are a lot of specificity that you have to follow in order to have your links working for a search engine. But with this roadmap, you can do it. After that, it's really not that complex, just a lot of little details to follow precisely. Now that we know what to do with our links, what do we do with the whole thing? Step by step. First, you decide what needs referencing. Of course, the entry point of your website, the one that is pointed to by the domain name, the URL, is always going to be referenced. It doesn't matter what type of page, even if it's a dynamic page, your static URL, your static domain name is pointing to it. So this one is always referenced. You can have any type of page at that level. But if you use a static page, it is too limited. You basically cannot do anything but do static links to something else. So that is extremely limited. You won't be able to do anything significant, and you need that in a professional website. So also remember that WebDev offers to include a home page in your website, and that home page just has the different languages and a welcome sign or something like that. That is a bad idea to include that thing into your website, because there is no content, nothing specific to your website. It is extremely 1980 in that case. It's really not to be used in any professional website. Now you can use, of course, a classic WebDev page. But in a classic WebDev page, you will not be able to put links to other things. So if you need to reference anything else than just your first page, then you need to really use an AWP page, at least for your home page. Now, this AWP page can describe your activity, is going to be fully indexable with all your keywords, and everything can find you. That is enough for you. You're done. Nothing else. Okay, you have your AWP page, you have everything in it. If you need more from your AWP page, well, you can have link the way we just described. You can have link to other things. So if you are selling things, you want your products to be found. That's generally a given. So the product list or catalog, yes, you want it. The product details, yes, you want them referenced to. Now, when you create a super duper page with the search, sort, and everything else in between, facility for your user to find product, no, that page doesn't need to be indexed by the search engine. What you need is the list of all your product and the product detail. The thing that your user are going to use to find something on your website once they are here has nothing to do with the search engine. So that can be in classic mode with Ajax to have all the bells and whistles and be really fancy. Now the cart itself, if you're selling there, you need a cart. It's not needed. You don't need it reference. You can. What does that mean? Well, if your cart is in AWP, it means that a user can leave your website, come back 2 days later with your AWP URL and find his cart back. So that can be a functionality that is interesting. But if you don't need it, don't want it, or whatever else, you can have your cart built in classic mode. And of course, you can make separate pages for referencing. Here we are talking about having a product list and product details fully referenceable. You can also have them as classic pages. Nothing prevents you from having two separate set of pages. What the search engine doesn't want is to have a different information given to it than the information given to the user. If you give the search engine the exact same information but just in a technically different set of pages, that's not a problem. So you can make separate pages for referencing, have just an entry point in your main page somewhere with catalog or whole catalog, or however you want to call that. From there you have a page with your really all your product, and from there you have the links to all the different products, and you can reference that in your sitemap and all that. So clearly you can do that with two different set of pages. It's not a problem.